welcome Hoosier fans to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call, as tonight your Indiana Hoosiers beat North Alabama 91-65 to move to 3-0 on this young season. And this was really a game that was kind of a tale of two halves. The Hoosiers did not play very well overall in the first half, and despite scoring 47 points and really shooting it well from the outside, the defense left a lot to be desired. And I think Indiana went to the locker room up 47-40, but probably not feeling real good about the way that they were playing, especially on the defensive end of the court. I know I was not very happy on the halftime report and really wanted to see what this team would do coming out in the second half. And to Indiana's credit, they came out and played much better in the second half, got rid of some of the sloppy turnovers, really turned it up on the defensive end. They outscored North Alabama 44-25 in the second half, and gave us some things that we can feel good about, which was good because, like I said, after that first half, it didn't look like there was going to be a lot to feel good about. I'm your host, Jerod Morris. I'm here with Andy Bottoms and Ryan Phillips, and we are going to break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU postgame show. And let's start this show the way that we start every show, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And the banner moment comes early in the second half. About 17 and a half minutes to go. It was still 50-43. Indiana was having some trouble putting North Alabama away. And for about a 90-second stretch, Trayce Jackson-Davis acted like he was the best player on the court and dominated and put some distance between Indiana and North Alabama. He scored 6 straight points for Indiana and did it all in different ways. On one possession, he got it on the left-hand side of the court, drove left baseline, missed it, a great rebound by Justin Smith, who got it back to Trayce, and he hit a nice little jump hook. That kind of aggressiveness is what Archie Miller has been asking for from Trayce, and he really showed it and continued to show it, as on the next possession he got the ball outside the three-point line, put the ball on the deck, drove in, got fouled, was aggressive again, made both of the free throws. His 9th and 10th makes of the game to that point. He would end up 14 for 15 from the line. So really terrific there from Trayce. And then the next possession, he got at the top of the key, drove in, and dunked it with his left hand, probably the signature moment from the night. It was a 6-point run by Trayce offensively for Indiana. It took it from 50-43 to 56-45. I don't think North Alabama ever got it within double digits again. And, it's not just the result here. As we've talked about, these early games, it's all about the process. And what I loved about this process from Trayce is he was aggressive. He's the biggest, most talented, most athletic guy on the court. And you could tell he believed it, and he was acting on it in that stretch. And that's not going to be there for him in every game this year. Obviously, as the competition goes up, the talent level, the athleticism of the opponents go up. He's not going to be able to do that every game. But seeing him have that mentality in this game, that is going to carry him through. Because I tell you what, a talent like him, an athlete like him, there are going to be a lot of times when he's that good. And I think we've heard Archie talk about how much he wants Trayce to play like that. Tonight we saw it, and it was huge, and it really sparked Indiana. And like I said, they kind of used that momentum, carried it forward for the rest of the game, for the rest of the second half. All right, our banner moment, as always, brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, which was founded by an IU grad and remains based in Indianapolis. And if you haven't been paying attention to what's been going on over there, you really need to go check out their website, homefieldapparel.com. They have so much incredible gear for the IU fan, either for yourself or the IU fan in your life as we head toward the holiday shopping season. Of course, the headliner item, the Bison logo hoodie made out of their soft tri-blend material. One of us is almost always wearing it while we're doing this show. In addition to the Bison hoodie, you've got the IU Champions t-shirt, the vintage sneakers design, which is actually available in a traditional cut, a 3/4 sleeve cut, and a women's cut. And they've been releasing an IU football-inspired design each week during the football season. So much there for you to go check out. Go to homefieldapparel.com and see what's best for you and for everybody that is on your shopping list this holiday season. And one note before you order, you're going to want to remember this. You get 20% off because you listen to the Assembly Call. So use the promo code ASSEMBLY20 when you're at checkout, ASSEMBLY20, and you will get 20% off your entire order at homefieldapparel.com. All right, well, it is time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. And we will start with Andy Bottoms. Andy, your Bottoms line on tonight's Indiana victory.
Well, I think you got to start with Trayce. It was definitely reached a point in the second half where it was why don't you just build the whole plane out of Trayce Jackson-Davis type status. So that was good. He was really fantastic. And I thought really at the start of both halves set the tone, was really, really intent, really active, and really tough. And I think you just see him getting better and better and more comfortable playing. Again, we can talk about the competition all we want in these scenarios. But I think it's, again, for him, it's good to be able to get in there and be able to compete, get a little bit comfortable. And I think he's started to see a little bit for the first time tonight, him scoring in some different ways that we've seen him. You talked about the play off the dribble where he dunked, and that was certainly a spectacular play, but he was really active on the glass, and the free throw shooting was a welcome sight to everyone. The other stretch, for me to talk about was, a lot of it, we talked about the defense being really rough in the first half. And there were spots in the first half where thought North Alabama hit some contested shots. There were some other threes that they made out of the, I think, 7 they made in the first half that were wide open and were, late closeouts or different defensive breakdowns. But there was a stretch of the second half where IU was really intent defensively. Got called for a few fouls at the beginning of the half, as would be a theme for the rest of it. But then there was a 13 possession stretch. I don't know what the score was then, but there was a 13 possession stretch where North Alabama scored 4 points and turned the ball over 8 times. And that's really when the lead extended itself, and IU, kind of relapsed a little bit or whatever after that, and gave up, 15 points in the 10 possessions after that. Most of those were from the free throw line, as everybody's getting called for fouls. But to me, that stretch there of like lights out defense to getting out of position, getting called for fouls, and giving up a whole bunch of points is kind of the, kind of make or break, teeter totter, or whatever you want to call it, of the way that this team played. When they were playing really strong defense and really aggressive, they were fantastic. When they, let up, they were able to, let a lesser team, hang around in the first half and get off to a run in the second half. So I think that's really the thing for me, is you talk about like habits to watch and things like that. Like, can more of the good stretches of defense become the norm, as opposed to the lapses where they really, get lax and allow some easy baskets?
Ryan, what do you have to rant about tonight? If you were there on the halftime report, you would have been ranting a lot with me.
I'm a little calmed down after the half. I think that what tonight proved was just how much better this team runs when Rob Phinisee is at the point guard. The game started off, and Armand Franklin, God love him, he's a true freshman. You're not expecting miracles out of the guy, but he's starting because they're obviously still kind of easing Rob Phinisee back in. And the first few minutes, it was really rough. It was bad. The team was turning the ball over. There just wasn't any flow, and it wasn't necessarily all on Armand. It just wasn't running smoothly. Rob Phinisee came in. All of a sudden, he's driving to the rim. He's moving the ball on the perimeter. He's finding open guys. Even if he's not getting an assist or getting to the basket or whatever, there's more confidence from the rest of the team when he's on the floor. Everybody knows he can run the offense, and it's just calmer. And it just feels like the ball moves through him on offense, and he knows when to attack. He knows when to pass. He knows when to back out, sort of start things over. He knows what plays to call in what situations. It just felt like there was a calm that settled over the team, and that's when they started playing a little bit better. You're right. The defense in the first half was really shaky from everyone, from guys who were typically really good defenders too. Al Durham had some rough patches. I'm sure we'll get to Justin Smith. He had some rough patches. I mean, there was just Jerome Hunter played great on offense for most of the game, but was really struggling to move his feet defensively and all of that. So there were some rough patches. This was not a perfect game, but you felt like they came out after halftime, really settled down. I believe Phinisee started the second half too. But and it just seemed like from the start of the second half on, there was just a confidence in the team they didn't have as much in the first half. Again, some of these early season games are going to get that ragged starts kind of as the team is still sort of molding together. But at the same time, I really think that second half looked really good when they came out. And I thought that Rob Phinisee had a lot to do with settling that team down in the first half as well.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. This game definitely showed the impact of Rob. I want to talk real quick about Archie Miller. Because, we spend a lot of time on here kind of breaking down each player. This was an interesting game from the standpoint of Archie. And there was a shot in the first half, one of North Alabama's many kind of uncontested shots in the lane that they made. And Archie was just kind of down on one knee over on the sideline. You just saw him drop his head, in exasperation, self-reflection. I don't know exactly what was going through his mind, but, he was clearly upset. I think they might have even gone ahead at that point, or maybe they were down by 1 or 2. And, clearly Archie didn't have his team ready to play the kind of basketball he wants them to play. because he has said he wants this program to hang its hat on defense. And all of the excuses that you want to build in for, Devontae's not out there. You got bigger guys guarding guys on the perimeter. It's early. You've got young guys. Like all of these different things, what we saw for the first 20 minutes was absolutely unacceptable defensively. I mean, that's going to get you beat by a team that isn't in the 300s in offensive efficiency in the country. So on that point, it's a little bit concerning that given how focused he was on it in the post-game press conference last game, talking about it this week, that this team didn't come out and play that kind of defense. But clearly he got a message across to him in the second half because they were a completely different team. And so, the ability to do that and adjust and kind of pull this team up by the scruff of its neck and get them going from unfocused, lackadaisical, really just, no cohesion at all on defense to much better in the second half, I'm going to take that as a good sign. That he was able to do that in the second half. So I think it's very fair to be concerned about what we saw in the first half, and I am, and we need to see this now for 40 minutes, but at least, Andy, he was able to get him there in the second half to get back to playing the kind of basketball he wants because, frankly, I thought the 47 points and the lead in the first half was kind of fool's gold. It was built on a team that was shooting well but not playing well, and finally in the second half they got back to actually playing the kind of basketball that they want to play and getting back to establishing their identity, which is what these early games are supposed to be about.
Yeah, it feels like a little bit of a theme to me between the exhibition and in the first couple games. I know at the very least the first couple where they really would go in, they'd talk to one of the assistants going into the half, and then there would be clear points of emphasis, and then they would come out in the second half and really focus on doing those things. So why that is not happening yet at the beginning of games, I think short of being aggressive enough to draw some fouls in the first half, I would agree with your assessment where they got good shots, but I think this was a scenario where you're going to be able to get good shots when you want.
And to Ryan's point, Rob started the second half and didn't start the first half, and I think that had something to do with it.
I think it did too.
He's out there.
Yeah.
Archie also left his jacket and tie in the locker room apparently. If you need any evidence of what that halftime speech was like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the flip side of that is though, the Blackman guy who comes out and hits, the 4 threes in the first half was 1 for 9 on the season and shot under 29% from three last year, and a few of the ones he hit were contested. So there's a little bit of that's ridiculous. Probably a guy that you don't mind taking shots, but I think it was on the heels of really struggling to contain dribblers against Portland State and giving up so many baskets in the lane. I think that's where the frustration really comes in. I think from a fan perspective, certainly from Archie's perspective, because that had to be an emphasis going into the game, and they really, in some ways, forced tough shots that they made, which I think you can live with. But I think those weren't the only shots that were going in. There were others that were created off of, defensive breakdowns and things like that. I know we were, in text kind of talking about how hard Joey Brunk was hedging screens and how far away from the basket he was when he was doing that. And that just kind of gets everybody else into, it just gets everybody else thrown off. Yeah. It's just so hard. He's got so far to recover playing out that far. It just gets difficult. So I think there were, that was a real struggle. And the other part, we'll kind of harp on the defense. It was another stretch toward the end of the first half. We'll get back to, but Ryan, it seems like you want to jump in, give your thoughts.
I'm just emphasizing what you're saying, my friend. The Joey Brunk high hedge from 25 feet away, and then having to, sprint back the 25 feet to cover his guy when, other people have to recover to that and then close out to their man. I mean, it's a mess, and Joey should not be, hedging out high on a screen 25 feet from the basket. You don't do that. I mean, you'd rather have the guy take the 25-foot shot than hedge out. Hedge below that screen, make sure he doesn't drive the lane, and then recover to your man. I think that, he's hedging high on these screens almost halfway to half court. And that's just not necessary. There were times where he hedged so high, the guy dribbled under him and went right by him instead of, usually instead of when you hedge, you're supposed to force the guy to go away from the basket, and he's hedging and the guy would sneak underneath him. I mean, it's too much. I mean, I like what Joey brings to this team as far as his leadership, veteran ability, and he's a presence in the post offensively, but he can't hedge 25, 27 feet from the basket and expect to recover and expect the defense to recover, because if you don't get back there immediately to your guy, somebody else has to step in and take the guy into the basket. Then everybody's scrambling to get to their guy, and you're one pass behind on defense. it's a problem. And we saw it a lot during the Tom Crean era, where they'd have a hard hedge from their post guy so far from the basket, and it leads to an easy layup. And at that point, don't hedge. Just lay back and make sure the guy doesn't drive to the hoop. That's all you got to do. Make him shoot that long shot. I mean, yeah, I know guys are good 3-point shooters these days, but make him shoot that. And that was my main complaint about the defense. I think that was causing chain reactions that caused guys to not be recovered in time, to get beat one-on-one, to get open 3-pointers, all of that stuff. It's one play can cause the entire defense to be off. Some guys were not playing well one-on-one. As I mentioned, Justin Smith, Al Durham, a couple other guys did not play great one-on-one defense, recovered, got a little bit better in the second half, got a lot of help from blocks on the interior and altered shots and things like that, which I think is going to be there all year for this IU team. But, if the point of contact for an offense, the point to start off the offense is a pick and roll with a guy 25 feet out from the basket, lay back. Do not fall into that trap, which is because he was doing exactly what North Alabama wanted him to. Come out really far, then have to recover 25, 30 feet to the basket against another big guy who's wide open. So I just think that set a chain reaction. We saw it less and less in the second half, but that set a chain reaction in the first half that got them. They were chasing in the first half, chasing on defense. You can't be chasing on defense.
And the help to the first guy would be there, or the recovery to the first pass would be there, but it was the second pass or the pass after the dribbler had beaten him. The help was just so off kilter. And that's what was better in the second half. See someone in the chat mob, and Andy, to your point, yes, they missed some shots in the first half in the second half, and they made some shots in the first half. And there's always going to be a little randomness with shooting when you're evaluating a defense. And again, that's why you have to evaluate the quality of the shot more than just the result. But I also find it a little bit funny how when you're not really fighting that hard on defense, you're not making it uncomfortable for teams, they make more difficult shots. And when you are,
you can't allow them to feel comfortable.
Right. And when you're really competing and you're fighting through screens and you're making movements more difficult, even when they get wide open, they're a little bit rushed and the shots don't go down as easily. So, I don't buy the whole thing that, this has just been this crazy run of teams banking in shots and hitting all these tough shots against us. There's been a little bit of that, but it's also because we've gone through stretches where we just haven't fought that hard on defense, and I have to imagine that's what Archie was talking about in that second half, especially when it comes to, containing dribblers, helping with purpose and all that stuff. So anyway, much better in the second half, though, and I think we can all at least exhale a little bit. Before we break, let's talk about Al Durham and Justin Smith. I thought this was the second kind of shaky performance for these two guys, Ryan. I thought in the last game against Portland State, they scored well, but, they didn't play great defense, struggled in certain areas. Tonight, Al Durham has 11 points. He does make a couple of threes. Justin Smith really disappeared for long stretches, only played 20 minutes, scored 3 points. I thought Al in particular defensively, he struggles moving laterally, but I also thought he allowed himself to get picked too easily. He's a guy defensively, because he struggles laterally, he's got to make up for it with anticipation and just flat out competing to beat a guy to a spot. I didn't think he was doing it in the first half. He did a better job in the second half. This is one of those performances from these two guys that make you remember that as freshmen and sophomores, they were very inconsistent players and would have games where they just kind of disappeared at times. You hope that gets better as upperclassmen. Still plenty of time for it too. But, these are games that make you kind of put your foot on the brakes just a little bit from all the enthusiasm from their first couple performances.
Yeah, I'm not as concerned about Al as I think you are, just from what I saw tonight. I saw some possessions where he was. I thought actually his biggest problem wasn't lateral movement. I thought he was guarding guys too close, too far away from the basket, and he would step to them and they drive, and that would get him backing off, and that's what created the lanes. I agree. Laterally, he still has a lot of work to do, but that wasn't my concern tonight. My concern tonight was that he was almost trying to step up too much, too far away. I mean, if the guy's 30 feet from the basket, let him be 30 feet from the basket.
Because guys kept hitting threes in his face. I think he got spooked.
That's true, but you don't need to guard that 30 feet away. You need to guard that 24 and in, and so, but I think that, again, mentally, he was thinking, this guy, I can't let him shoot over me. And so he would step out a little bit too far and then get screened or get the drive, and then he'd have to recover. And so that was my concern with him, was that he was and he was a little flat-footed tonight. I don't know what it was, but he was a little flat-footed tonight in stretches. I thought in stretches he played fine defense, but in stretches, you're right. There was just, it was lackadaisical. I thought he had some great recovery even though he got himself into trouble. I thought he recovered
the
well
block shot in the second half.
Shot,
that's what I'm talking about. He competed there. He didn't just let the guy get by him. He fought after that happened.
And you saw that happen more again in the second half.
Yes.
And with Justin Smith, my concern was that he just was absent. There was a foul earlier that, maybe wasn't actually, it was on 3-pointer where he fouled the guy on the 3-pointer. It was the Kyle Guy move where he didn't give him a chance to land and the guy kind of flopped it out and got the foul call. Justin didn't like it. A lot of people didn't like it. Then he came, and then you knew absolutely, this is in the second half, you knew he was going to take the next shot because that's what Justin Smith does. Something bad happens that he doesn't like. He goes down and tries to make people forget about it. And he took a 3 that was ill-advised. He tried to drive in first and ran right into somebody and, almost gave the ball away, kicked it, then stepped out and tried a 3 and missed it. And then he came back down again on the very next play and fouled a guy. And that's the Justin Smith we saw a lot last year. And that's not the guy we saw in the first 2 games. And I just thought his defense was okay tonight. He's so athletically gifted that okay defense from him is usually pretty good. But it just felt like he was on another planet during this game. He was not locked in, not energetic. He looked flat, like he had no expression. That's not the guy we saw in the first couple games where he was reliable to attack and he was reliable to step up defensively and make a play. There was one play where he forced to travel. It was great defense where he recovered to Jerome Davis's man and played straight up and the guy had to go around him and he didn't move. He stayed right there and the guy dragged his foot and traveled. That was a nice play, but other than that, there was nothing that stood out about his game tonight. There was nothing offensive. He only took 2 shots. One of them was at 3. He wasn't trying to, he tried to post up like once or twice. He really just did not. One time he tried to post up and he started backing a guy down and very obviously a defender from the perimeter stepped in and tried to knock the ball away and stole it. And it was like everyone in the arena saw that happening except Justin Smith. It was a lack of focus tonight, it looked like to me. And that was very concerning.
Yeah, for me, I would echo a lot of what Ryan said. I'm less concerned about Al. I think you look at his stat line, the 2 things that jump out is he had 4 fouls, or I guess this is 3 things, 4 fouls, no assists, 3 turnovers. The scoring I think was fine. While Rob took on, because he ended up playing more, took on a bit more of the primary ball handling role. I think you'd like to see a guy like Al be more of a creator as he had been in some of the other games and take a little bit better care of the ball. Defensively, I think you guys hit that pretty well. He's one I'm less concerned about. I think the Justin, again, in the same way that we shouldn't overreact to the first couple games, we probably shouldn't overreact to this one. But I go back a little bit, Jerod, to what Mike DeCourcy brought up with you on Banner Monday, where I think the 2 things he said were important for IU was under control Devontae and engage Justin. And I thought this was the first time that we didn't see engage Justin for stretches of the game. And I had circled that same stretch that Ryan talked about. Although what's interesting after that, so he fouled the guy on the 3, almost turned the ball over, then shot a 3, fouled again. On the next possession offensively, though, he did make a good effort playing out an offensive rebound. I think it's the one that, he pitched it to Trayce, eventually scored on the possession. So it was like he didn't get completely out of it at that stage, but it was where, one bad play turns to 3 instead of just, moving on from, maybe it was questionable. It was hard to tell from the camera angle on the 3-point shot, whatever the case may be. At that point in the game, like, can you move on from that and really get back in it quickly? And he eventually did, but I think it took a little while. And I think this is the kind of game that will get people's guard up with him in terms of what he can be. And we'll kind of go from there. But I thought it was a game, if you look from a minutes perspective, Justin played 20 minutes. There's a lot of guys right in that 17, 19, 20 minute range. So they were able to spread that out. Al was the only guy who played more than 22 and actually, had the highest plus minus again for a 1-game thing. I don't know that means a great deal, but I did think, it wasn't like Archie necessarily forced the issue with Justin, and he was certainly willing to play other guys when he wasn't playing as well as he might have liked them to.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you guys. I'm less concerned about Al, because in the past when Al would have kind of a disappear game, he would score 0-2 points and would lose his aggressiveness. That's not happening. He's still being aggressive offensively. He scored in double digits and I thought improved within the game. So I think those are important points that you guys made. And yeah, this was something that we've seen from Justin, and hopefully he leaves it here in North Alabama, learns from it, and we can move forward. And one quick point I want to make before we break that was made in the chat by Jeff that is important to remember is Archie is experimenting some in first halves with lineups. Coach said maybe some of those ball screen coverages, because they've been a little bit different than what we saw the first couple games. Maybe that was a scouting report issue that just wasn't executed very well. That context is important for these games, that some of the things we're seeing may be experiments. And, if they don't work, maybe they're experiments that don't last very long. And certainly there were some in the first half that we would hope to see stay there in the first half. All right, coming up, we continue our breakdown of Indiana's victory over North Alabama. I will point out tonight's meaningful moment that you might have missed, and then we will go inside the numbers to highlight the most important statistical notes from the game. You are listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
Hi, this is James Blackman Jr. I never miss an open three, and I never miss an episode of the Assembly Call. Join Jerod, Andy, Ryan, and Coach after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers.
You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Jerod Morris here with Ryan Phillips and Andy Bottoms, and we are breaking down Indiana's 91-65 victory over North Alabama tonight as the Hoosiers move to 3-0. They put a bad first half behind them, played much better in the second half. And guys, it's time for tonight's meaningful moment that you might have missed. And, to that point about the defense, I thought there was one possession in particular that really showed the improvement in the second half. Ryan, we talked in the first half about how in the first half, they really just got discombobulated with help, and if North Alabama would just be patient, make the extra pass, they were getting open shots. And at about the 13:45 mark in the second half, Indiana leading by 13, 58-45, a North Alabama guy drove the left baseline, passed to the guy in the corner, and North Alabama whipped the ball around the perimeter, and Indiana exhibited outstanding help. Not only, I don't remember who it was, not only did somebody slide over and stop the dribble penetration, but they rotated over to the guy in the corner and then rotated to each pass to the point where every pass you kind of thought, well, they're going to get an open three, but then an Indiana guy was there, and they ended up forcing a turnover. That's what it should look like. And I believe the lineup on the floor at the time was Al, Armand, Jerome, Race, and Trayce, and we're going to talk about it. Some of those guys, when they've been on the court and playing together, have really been good. But, when we talk about, guys hitting these tough shots and all this stuff, well, one of the best ways to prevent that is to actually hustle, to help with purpose, and to know where everybody's going to go, and to close out well. And that's what Indiana did, to the point where North Alabama couldn't even get the shot off. That's the kind of defense that we want to see. And so that's why, to me, Andy, as you look at that second half, that's why I'm so much more encouraged, because that we would not have seen that possession in the first half. The guys just didn't seem as engaged as you would need to be on a possession like that. That was the defense executed well. And they didn't play like that the entire second half, but there were certainly more examples of it than what we saw in the first. And that's got to make Archie happy.
Yeah, that was a kind of a textbook defensive possession, probably regardless, but certainly in comparison to the into what we saw in the first half. But it was really good recovery, and you could even hear the crowd kind of get excited, because they had, it was one of the first times, if not maybe the first time, they'd really seen that level of rotation and over the course of the game. So yeah, you could tell it kind of picked up the crowd, and then at that point when they had contained everything and everything got reset, you kind of felt like, all right, well, there's no way they're scoring on this possession, because the opportunity to score had passed. IU had stemmed the tide and figured out a way to close it down. So yeah, I remember exactly the play you were talking about. It was a really good sequence by a number of guys, and one of the points that was made on the broadcast a number of times was really about communication on the floor. And I don't know if that has anything to do with some of these combinations that seem to have worked better together. I have no idea who gets along better with anybody else on the team, or who's more communicative, or whatever the case may be. But you definitely see those kinds of breakdowns that seem preventable. In that case, you've got guys, I feel like on that one, kind of pointing different things out, and you could kind of see them going through the process of getting to where they needed to be as a unit, as opposed to just individually trying to go and kind of do something one-on-one.
Yeah. Ryan, another moment that I'm sure nobody missed is Jerome Hunter came in again with fire in his eyes. I think the first time he touched it, put up a 3 and drained it. And, I think he scored 7 points pretty quickly, and Jerome finished the night with 12 points, played 19 minutes. Really was nice to see him get out there, get some more extended time. Wasn't as efficient. He was 4 for 9, but, man, 2 of those threes rattled in and out. Like his shot.
He should have had 2 more.
And he looks confident, man. And, you see the offensive potential oozing. You had an interesting, I thought, observation during the game, that defensively he obviously, needs some work and needs to, be able to get low and kind of play for full possessions, which is going to come as he gets better. But, my goodness, he continues to show things to be really, really encouraged by as we go through these first few games.
Yeah, the indication of a guy on defense who's kind of struggling is when they bend over but don't bend their knees. And so you see him leaning forward and not sort of in a stance and with their bend. And you could see that with Jerome. And look, he sat out for a year. He's not where he wants to be defensively. He's not where Archie wants him to be defensively. Missed an entire year of basketball. The offense is very encouraging because of what we saw from Jerome in high school. I think he can develop. He's certainly got the athleticism and the skill to develop into a much better defender and a better all-around player. But the thing is that, remember, he sat out a year of a weight program, then had the summer working non-contact to build up his strength again. So he's not a year advanced from when he entered college. He's probably about where he was when he entered college, maybe a little bit ahead of that. But remember, he lost a year. I mean, it's so hard to describe what that does to a guy to lose a year and what it does to your body and what it does to your mental state and all that. What my favorite part wasn't Jerome stepping up and shooting threes, because his shot looks great right now. And the 2 that rattled in and out were halfway down and came out. Just cruel luck on that rim. But the one that I really liked was when he got the ball on the wing one time, took a couple dribbles in, turned his back to the guy, and then turned and just had a little jump hook right over him. That's confidence. Like, that is confidence. He wasn't in a set post up. He was just on the wing. He knew he was better than his guy, took a couple dribbles in, shielded him with his body, and then did a little quick jump hook. That's the confidence you want to see out of a scorer like Jerome Hunter. And it was so quick and it was so definitive. It wasn't sometimes you see a guy get in the post and he bangs the ball on the ground for a minute and then makes some crazy move. That was just, oh no, I'm bigger than this guy. I'm going to go right up over him. He took a couple dribbles in and then just that quick little hook. And that's the kind of scoring that, like, that's an easy basket. And when you're playing basketball, you want to get as many easy baskets as possible, whether they're wide open threes or layups or whatever. You want to find as many easy baskets as possible. And that's an easy basket for Jerome Hunter, given his size, given his length, and given his skill set. So it was really encouraging to see that from him, really encouraging to see him confidently stepping into threes, which will start to fall with more regularity. I don't know what was going on with that rim. That was just cruel to happen to the same guy on back-to-back shots. But really, really encouraged from what we've had from Jerome Hunter so far. 19 minutes, 12 points. As you said, he was 4 of 9, but 2 of those shots should have been in. I don't think anybody's going to be concerned about that. The questions are going to come moving laterally, defensively, maybe his timing defensively, knowing where guys are, again, learning to play in the system, in the pack line defense. We've seen that take some guys up to 2 years to learn. I mean, so that's the concern I have. But it was great to see him. I mean, look, if he's a guy who can come on and just give you extra offense off the bench and just be an energizer bunny with his defense or with his offense, and then guys can cover him defensively for a little bit, give him 20 minutes a game to do that. That'd be great.
That's why you pair him with Trayce Thompson, man.
I mean, yeah. And speaking of another guy who we need to talk about.
Well, one more point I want to make on Jerome, and then I want to get Andy's thoughts on him. It's starting to feel like once you get Devontae back, you always want to have one of those 2 guys on the court because they're the 2 guys that can go get a shot when the shot clock goes down. Because Jerome is tall enough, he can shoot over people, he can go down the post, like he can go get a shot. Same with Devontae. Like those 2 guys have those skills that really no one else has, and I think those are going to be incredibly useful for this team once the competition gets better, as we all know happens in in Big Ten play, and the offense gets into a little bit of a slog. I mean, that's just something Indiana needed last year from somebody else, and it looks like he'll be able to provide some of that this year, hopefully. Andy, your thoughts on him, and then let's talk about Trayce too.
Yeah, I think what you really like about Jerome, and he showed it tonight, was his ability to score at really any level on the court. He scored some points in the post. Ryan talked about that one. He continues to look pretty comfortable sliding in there and getting position, hit that mid-range jumper, I think, at the very end of the game. And then you've seen his, three-point shot really start to look a little bit more fluid and more confident as much as anything over the last couple of games. And he's a guy who, he just feels like he can cover a lot of ground in just a couple steps and a couple dribbles. And really, that play that Ryan was talking about, like, he made up his mind and really made up a lot of ground on the court, got himself in a position to score, and did it all really quickly. So I think you just see a guy who is starting to feel more comfortable, starting to feel more confident. And again, we kind of talked about there's lots of things you can nitpick about the schedule, but for a guy like him, it's kind of perfect. There's not a ton of pressure in some of these scenarios, and you've already seen the strides that he's made over the course of essentially 4 games, if you count the exhibition, and what he's really been able to do, and the difference even in that over what really has amounted to 2 weeks of game action. You just see him looking more comfortable, some of the things that you see, and he's a guy who can just score. And so I think he gives them somebody who can play different positions and a guy who you can put in different places on the floor to be able to either create things for others or find ways to get points for himself.
Yeah. Okay, let's go inside the numbers real quick. No. Let's talk about Trayce Thompson a little bit more. We definitely want to talk about him, a guy who continues to just be a rebounding machine. I'll tell you what I love the most about Trayce. That is a guy who competes on every defensive possession, even when he gets beaten. I mean, he bodies guys up. He recovered. Did he have 3 block shots tonight? Did I see that right? Yeah, 3 block shots.
3, yeah.
He only had 4 rebounds, which
2 on 1 possession.
Yeah, it's funny. He played 17 minutes, 5 points, 4 boards, 3 blocks. I mean, I guess that kind of tells the story, but I kind of thought the numbers were going to be more. Like, I felt like his impact was more.
They were plus 17 when he was on the floor.
Yeah, because he makes an impact. He just brings a toughness. And I tell you, the thing that I kept thinking as this game was going on is, let's say that this was a 5-point game with under 4 minutes to go. Who do you think Archie's rolling out there for a lineup?
Oh,
I would almost guarantee Trayce Thompson would be on the court.
He has his defensive ability, his energy. I mean, that guy needs to be on the floor more. And people were talking about it in our chat here online. And it's you got to play him more. I mean, maybe you're easing him into a bigger minutes load. I get that, but man, 17 minutes for him. They were plus 17. I mean, he's.
Especially when Joey and Durham aren't exactly taking their minutes and running with them.
I agree. I mean, look, I think that is a guy who is never, even if he gets beat on defense, he recovers and he plays tough. And I don't care that he scored 5, but he was 3 of 4 from the free throw line. I mean, you put him in any situation, he'll be fine and he'll handle himself. And I think he's earning minutes right now. I mean, I know
get 2 steals too.
Yeah, Demezi Anderson went out there and got 10 points tonight. Was 4 of 5 shooting, 2 of 3 from 3. I want Trayce Thompson to get more minutes than he did, and Demezi had the counting stats on him. Trayce Thompson adds a level of toughness, a level of energy, and there's just so much to the floor when he's like putting he and Trayce Jackson-Davis in the post defensively is you're going to shut teams down. I mean, Trayce Jackson-Davis, quite frankly, I know we're going to get into him later, but he could lead the Big Ten in blocks this year and not feel like he's just hunting blocks. He's actually playing good defense. Trayce Thompson and he on the block, that's a good defensive tandem down there. I want to see both those guys play more. Trayce had 22 minutes tonight and Trayce Thompson at 17. I want to see more out of those guys. I think we can get it.
I do like how Archie balanced the minutes though and didn't overload anybody tonight. It was nice to see.
Right. No, I mean, I get what's going on right now. They're trying lineups. They're trying to get guys playing time and all that. Totally on board with that. I just mean as we start to get to the bigger games, I want those guys who are showing out to earn minutes. He needs to put Demezi Anderson out there right now for 20 minutes a game to try and find out if he's going to be valuable as we get into tougher games as a shooter and a scorer. I get that. Yeah. I just don't want to see Trayce Thompson only playing 17 minutes when we get into the games that matter.
Yeah. All right, let's go inside the numbers. Obviously, the number that's going to jump out to everybody, 37 of 45 from the free throw line. I mean, not only is the number great, I mean, 45 free throws, a free throw rate of almost 100% since Indiana took 46 field goal attempts, but making 37, 82.2%. Quick pop quiz. Do you know what Indiana is shooting from the free throw line on this young season?
74%.
Higher. Andy.
I already looked and saw the Ken Pom stats updated, so I won't spoil it for
77?
Say it.
76.
76% from the free throw line, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the free throw defense, not quite as good, but the free throw shooting, amazing.
By the way, there were 54 fouls called in this game. That was absurd. There were a bunch on North Alabama where I was like, really? You're going to call that? Like, I mean,
no, it was crazy. But
they had 3 guys foul out and 2 guys with 4.
Hey, but kudos to these guys. I mean, the free throw shooting is now, I mean, this is 3 games where this team is really stepping up and knocking them down. And Trayce, a freshman, a big guy, 14 of 15. I mean, that, clearly that number jumps out. Andy, as you look at, the numbers, because the other thing that jumped out to me was that no one played fewer than 13 minutes and no one played more than 29. That kind of balance I thought was really nice to get so many guys so many minutes. But what else jumped out to you numbers-wise?
Yeah, I think the balance from a scoring perspective was there as well. You had 5 guys in double figures, and I think 9 guys had at least 5 points. So a really, solid all around performance there. One thing, and part of this can be attributed to, maybe some of the free throw shooting masks this a little bit. But of the 46 field goal attempts that IU had, 21 of them were from 3-point range. And for a while, there were actually, IU had taken, I think, more threes than 2. So I agree that part of that is, being aggressive and getting fouled in some of those scenarios. But I do think there were times when, IU settled a little bit easily for 3-point shots that they could have gotten later, because they still shot really well from 2-point range, or 15 of 25, so you're 60%.
They got fouled a lot
on 2-point shot,
though.
so yeah, so that's fair. The rebounding was interesting. 28. The rebounding battle was pretty close. And part of that is so many free throws, different things like that,
and turnovers. The other team, North Alabama, had 22 turnovers too, so they weren't getting as many shots up.
Yeah, of the rebounds, I mean, Trayce had 8, and then Race had 4, and then kind of a bunch of guys with a couple. IU took a lot better care of the ball in the second half. 9 turnovers in the first half, just 4 in the second. So that was important. And IU got
some of
a lot
those
of points
turnovers
off
were bad too.
Yeah, they were not. It was not great. There was a stretch where, like, I think the teams turned the ball over like a combined 5 possessions in a row, and a tear rolled down my cheek as I think the ball love for basketball wet. Started to die. But
I'm not joking. I think the ball was wet because guys kept wiping their hands off.
I bet that's what the players were saying.
I mean, it looked like, and then there was one where it didn't wind up being a turnover, but it slipped out of Jerome Hunter's hands, like it completely, like he went to pass it and the ball just floated in the air. And I think it went out of bounds, or tipped out of bounds by Northern Alabama. So
it was like one of those brand new balls that still has the shine.
Yeah,
on.
No, I mean, guys were like wiping their hands, and that was in that stretch where everybody kept turning it over. So I don't know. But no, I think that the clamping down the turnovers in the second half was a huge key for Indiana. It was just the 4 turnovers.
Yeah, second half defensively. Ryan put these in the chat. 15 of North Alabama's points came from the free throw line. Otherwise, they were 0 of 4 from 3 and 5 of 18 on the from the field, and had 12 turnovers. So I think it speaks a lot to the defensive intensity in the second half. Overall, IU had 9 blocks and 6 steals. Those are good, and 23 points off turnovers for IU. So, those are positive numbers. So, expecting a game like this, a lot of good things to find despite some stretches that were a little bit ugly.
Yeah, my number is just that North Alabama hit 7 of 10 threes in the first half and went 0 of 4 in the second half. That means guys are closing out to shooters, because those guys didn't just stop shooting threes because they felt like it. They stopped shooting because they weren't there, and they didn't make one in the second half. That was an emphasis at halftime. 7 of 10 was just crazy in the first half. And then, they just didn't let them get any points from there. They had 21 points, from the 3-point line in the first half, and none in the second half. I think that was a huge part of the defensive effort.
Also, 1 free throw earned for the other team flopping.
Hey, yeah, I like that rule, by the way. Same guy twice.
Same guy twice. Stop it! You're embarrassing yourself. Exactly. Enough, my friend. Enough.
The last number that I want to mention is 4, which is the combined field goal attempts of Joey Brunk and Jerod Davis. A lot of talk in the offseason about how this team was going to maybe play 2 bigs and pound the ball inside. And clearly Indiana did pound the ball inside and got some points in the paint and got
a lot of fouls.
Yeah, and Trayce got 20 points. And those guys did get to the free throw line. Brunk had 3 free throws. Jerod had 6 free throws. So that was all good. But still, those two guys, they struggle on defense. They really have to make their impact offensively. And for whatever reason, whether it's just, the entry passes aren't great or, whatever it is, or they're not getting position, like they're not having the impact I think that we would have expected they might have early in the season. And again, with Durham, I'm not going to overreact to it. I want to see, how he starts to play when the games are a little bit bigger. But, man, I thought for his first stretch on the court, I thought he looked almost totally checked out. He was just out of it. Then he came back in, and to his credit, got back in. It had that beautiful spin move. And I think he started jawing with the guy across from him. And when that happens, Durham really gets into the game.
He's in, yeah.
Yeah, but, I guess I expected a little bit more from those guys offensively. And, right now we're not quite seeing it. So
did you guys mention
interesting, I thought.
Did you guys mention bench points?
Bench points was 46.
46 bench points. And we had talked about how we were worried about sort of the bench. Will the offense slow down? But again, Rob Finney was on the bench tonight.
Yeah, tonight the bench actually turned things around.
Yeah, Jerome Hunter was on the bench. Demezy Anderson scored points off the bench. I mean, they had some really good. And I think this is a team that can actually score off the bench when the season comes around. Once these guys are more comfortable, you see Jerome Hunter get more comfortable, Trayce Thompson, and then you're going to have Armaan Franklin coming off the bench likely, and then one of the starters will be coming off the bench because
Devontae's going to be back.
Devontae's coming back. I've forgotten his name.
Forget the man's name. He hasn't been out that long.
Gone for 3 games, and I can't even remember him.
Good grief.
But, Devontae's going to be back, so somebody else is going to be forced to the bench. So that bench is going to be deeper and be able to come on and score. I'm not worried about it. I thought tonight they were fantastic. I thought the team started slow and played better when the bench was in, whereas in the first couple games it seemed like they started well, and then the bench came in and it kind of had a lull. So I thought it was the reverse. You were right.
Yeah, I thought, to go back to your point about Duran and Brunk, I think it kind of ties into Trayce Thompson point. The thing I was going to say about him is that he is not going to get you beat and doesn't need the ball in his hands to be successful. And I think when you contrast that a little bit with those two guys, you see them struggling defensively, and a little bit of that is playing some smaller teams and things like that. But if you think that you're not going to watch those guys get put into ball screens the entire time they're on the floor against Cassius Winston or against Xavier Simpson or any of the good point guards in the Big Ten, like, you're kidding yourself. So in that regard, like, they're not giving you, they are going to be somebody who's going to put so much pressure on the defense, as we talked about before, to kind of cover for them when they're put in those scenarios. And I think with Duran in particular, he feels like when he's in the game, they really have to force feed him the ball to take advantage of what he does really well. And he had the one really good move, I think, in the first half. That was solid, but I think when he's on the floor, they feel like they have to get him the ball. And I think Trayce, in a scenario where there's other guys who can score and contribute, whether it's Jerome or Al or whoever else, like, he's a guy who doesn't demand the ball. Like, yeah, he's going to get you some putbacks and maybe you dump it into him every once in a while, but isn't a guy that you feel obligated to get the ball to and is still going to contribute regardless. So I think that's kind of the dilemma based on what you've seen so far that Archie has to face of, like, how do these pieces really fit best together? And I think Trayce's skill set and what he does well from an instinctual standpoint and defensively really complements virtually anybody really well. And I don't know if you can say the same thing through these games, but I'd really like to see what this team looks like against Florida State's going to be a great test. They always have tons of size and things like that. So
yeah, athleticism.
How much do you need a Duran and a Joey in those games versus these? And is it in some cases just a physical size type thing? So
it's going to
we'll
be
find
very
out, but not
matchup
for a few weeks.
Yeah.
It's going to be very matchup dependent with those two.
At least we have the different kind of pieces that we can mix and match, which is nice.
Yeah, that's encouraging for sure.
All right, coming up on the assembly call, we are going to hand out our game balls, and then we will hit any other lingering storylines, including Demezy Anderson, because we need to talk a little bit about him. And then we'll look ahead to Indiana's next opponent, and it'll be time for last call. That's all next. Stick with us here on the assembly call.
This is Jordan Halls, and I never miss a shot or an episode of the Assembly Call.
You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Catch us live immediately following every IU basketball game, plus every Thursday night at our website, assemblycall.com. And while you are there, make sure that you sign up for our free IU Hoops email newsletter. Over 7,000 of your fellow IU fans have subscribed. You can text IU to 66866 to subscribe to the newsletter. That's IU to 66866. Or again, go to our website, assemblycall.com. I'm Jerod Morris, here with Andy Bottoms and Ryan Phillips. You know, Jordan Hulls did that little intro for us there. Trayce Jackson-Davis did himself a nice little Jordan Hulls impression tonight with his 14 of 15 from the line. And that is a nice little lead-in for our game balls, because I have a feeling Trayce's name is going to be mentioned in this segment. So far for the season, Durham has one game ball. Trayce Jackson-Davis has one. Will the tie be broken? I'm just going to start. I'll give my game ball to Trayce. He got the banner moment. I thought he was the catalyst to Indiana, extending their lead and really putting North Alabama away. And he just, once again was a really, I thought, consistent presence overall. He has his moments defensively. You'll see it where, he's a little bit slow to react. It still looks like he's thinking out there sometimes. And as the season goes along, that's going to get better. But when he's just reacting and playing and not thinking, you see the talent just bursting out of him. And, it's just got to make every IU fan so excited about his potential and what he can be. And, it feels like he's just scratching the surface of it. And here he is in his third game going for 20 points, 8 rebounds, 14-15 from the field, and 3 blocks. So, I mean, that's pretty good for a guy that's, just getting started. So, Trayce is my game ball tonight. Ryan, who gets yours?
The entire roster of the Evansville Aces for beating Kentucky. Nice job, Evansville. We're here for you. Kentucky was number 1, too, so this wasn't one of those times where Kentucky was like 20th and some little school beat them. Congratulations, Evansville. My Indiana game ball will go to Trayce Jackson-Davis. I think that's a pretty obvious pick. Rob Finney gave him a little bit of a run for his money with some of the way he played late in the game and with that stretch early. I really liked what I saw from Rob, but it's Trayce Jackson-Davis, 14 out of 15 at the line, and just going to get there. It's so funny. We're giving the game ball to a guy who only shot 4 shots and 4 field goals, but the 8 rebounds, he had blocks. I mean, he was doing everything that you expect from a McDonald's All-American, and that little sweet little drive and dunk punctuated it all for me. So Trayce, congratulations. You got a game ball tonight.
Andy, did you have any flashbacks to 1993 when Greg Graham went 26 of 28 from the free throw line, seeing Trayce just live at the line like that tonight? Because I know I did.
I did think about it at one point, but he was too far off the pace to really challenge it. But
how remarkable is that stat line from Greg Graham? 26
just to be able to get there that many times. I mean, when you think about this game, for as many fouls as there were, Trayce had 15. Nobody else had more than 6 attempts, maybe. Yeah. I don't know, but it was Trayce for me. I think Finney, to Ryan's point, was the other guy that you could consider. Thought he provided a good spark off the bench, 6 assists. So good numbers there. I thought again they seemed to put him on Blackman, who had hit those threes early and really slowed him down a bit. But I mean, Trayce leads in points, blocks, rebounds. And makes 14 of 15 from the line, which I would say virtually after the last few years, if anybody makes 14 of 15 from the line, really
automatic game
any
ball.
Scenario, that's like an automatic game ball.
Yeah. By the way, 2 just quick moments to point out about Rob. One, there was a play where Race was, out guarding his man on the perimeter, and he's just not very good at that right now, especially against a guard. But he got beat, and he hustled to help. But, man, Rob Finney was so quick to get his feet planted outside the lane and took that charge. It was beautiful. That's the kind of stuff that you get from Rob Finney. And just something to watch out for. I haven't seen any quotes in the postgame or anything. Rob took a shot toward the end of the second half when he drove into the lane and went up for that layup, and he took a body shot from the North Alabama guy. And you could kind of see, like, it was one of those, like, it was almost his entire side got hit. And you kind of see him kind of trying to shake it off as he was walking. So for a guy that's dealing with a lower abdominal injury, I'm not trying to, like, sound any alarms or anything, but I would just kind of keep our eye on that for a guy who's been battling some injuries. My guess he's going to feel that.
Stepped in and took a pretty tough charge, too, at one point.
Yeah, and this is a guy who's still recovering. I mean, he is tough, man. He is really tough. One last player I want to talk about before we move on is Demezie Anderson. We've mentioned him a little bit. I thought, Ryan, what we saw from Demezie in the second half is kind of what he's going to have to do if he's going to get minutes, which is he's just got to go outscore his defensive mistakes. Because Demezie, to save his life right now, cannot keep anybody in front of him on the perimeter. And it was
really bad. It was really bad in the first half.
And I
really
like
bad in the first
you
half.
see him. I feel like he is playing hard and trying, but the awareness and just kind of the anticipation just isn't there, and the quickness. Like, none of those things are there. You almost just can't put him on perimeter guys. Now, when he can guard a guy on the block and use his body, use his quick hands, he's got a shot. He's not great, but he's at least got a chance. And so he really, to me, projects as a guy that's going to have to play the 4, to really get on the court, because against good competition, he's going to get abused on defense. But to his credit, on the other end, he hustled for a loose ball and turned it into a bucket. He made a 3. He got that nice assist to Trayce. Like, the guy is wired to score, and he did. And what did he end up with? Did he end up with 10?
10
yeah.
on 4 or 5 and 2 of 3 from 3.
Yeah, he was efficient. He had a couple of assists. So I felt like in the second half, he produced more than he gave away. But, his really
defense was better in the second half, too, but it's still one-on-one. He's not going to be able to
can't. He can't keep guys in front of him on the perimeter.
And it almost feels like when he's – and he almost got his ankles broken at one point by some guy who made a crossover on him. It almost is like he's running around on ice or something. Like he's not, I don't know. It's like, how when you play and you're on a dusty floor and you have to wipe the bottom of your shoes. It's like he's playing without doing that. Like he's sliding around and he's not good at moving his feet. He's not good laterally.
Maybe the court was wet too.
Yeah. It's tough to watch. It's really, really tough to watch. And you hope that he gets better over his time, that maybe, they unlock something with his athleticism. We know he doesn't get off the floor very much when he shoots and when he jumps and all that stuff. Maybe they're able to unlock some athleticism, get him to be more active side to side and quicker. But right now it doesn't look good. And it doesn't look like this is a guy that you're going to be able to put on the floor against top level competition. Defensively.
No, he does look more comfortable offensively, but that's the thing. There's just, so many holes there defensively, but for a defensive-minded coach. Andy, do you have any comments on Damezi?
No, I think you guys hit it well. He just, it just was, even toward the end of the game, they had somebody just drove by him and got right into the lane, and I think that's just going to continue to be a struggle for him. I think he's one guy on this team where it's not, and I think Jerod, you brought up the reasons where it's not necessarily like a clear spot to figure out where to play him, because you compare him to other guys who might play the 3 in that scenario, and I think anybody who else would slot into there is going to be better than he is defensively. If you play him at the 4, you just have so many guys there that you kind of opt to play him in that position over the lengthy list of big guys that they have. So I think it's just a weird spot for him to be able to do that, but he's going to have to figure out how to overcome some of those things defensively if he's really going to earn minutes when things get rough. But I do think, like, hustling wise, there was spots where you've seen improvement in that perspective.
It's not for lack of trying, for sure.
Yeah. So, well, it'll just be interesting to see. Again, these games are good for a guy like him to try to work some of those kinks out. And, but I would agree with you that if you don't see it in these games, you're hard pressed to think that you're going to see improvement when things start to get tougher.
Ken Palm numbers updated. Indiana 35th after this victory. The offense 26th overall in efficiency. Defense 49th. So the defense continues to drop, but again, numbers are very noisy early in the season. One other thing I did want to mention, Armand Franklin, a guy who was obviously the talk of everybody after the Western Illinois performance, 8 assists, no turnovers, has kind of come back to earth as freshmen are wont to do here these last couple games. 3 turnovers or 3 assists, 5 turnovers last couple games. The one positive I thought tonight, I thought he had some good stretches defensively, I thought in the second half, made a 3-pointer. That was nice to see for his confidence. You kind of contrast Jerome's shots right now when he misses, they're online. Armand's shots are kind of all over the place.
Off, yeah.
And so it was nice to see him make that shot, and I thought he kind of looked for his next one with confidence. That, to me, is something to watch for him. It was really easy with how he played in the exhibition against Western Illinois to get ahead of ourselves with how good he can be. And believe me, I think he can be good. I think he's going to be a contributor for this team. But one of the most important things he can do is come off the bench and make outside shots. And that, to me, is can he build some confidence over these next few weeks with that outside shot? I don't think he's going to be a knockdown shooter by any means, but he needs to be capable of it. So I was happy to see him get his first one. He's only 1 for 7 on the season, but that, I think, is going to be an important skill for him to have if he's going to get in there and play extended minutes, be able to be another shooter for this team.
Yeah, he does a thing where he shoots sometimes, and it's almost like his hand follows through and the ball curves.
Yeah.
It almost curves in the air instead of being a flat straight shot. What I thought I saw from him, you were talking about that play where they closed out. They closed down everybody well defensively. He was the guy that had the longest to go on a closeout, and he got there. And he was the guy whose guy was going to take the shot. It was wide open, and he closed out perfectly. I mean, that's something that I think is there with him all the time, is that he is going to make that effort to get to the closeout, to get to things defensively and everything. And he's also still, you look at him when he handles the ball and brings things up, and he may miss a shot, on a drive or whatever, but he still has a lot of confidence in his game and in his ability.
Yeah,
and that needs to carry over to the regular season because he's going to take his lumps. He's a freshman playing at a major conference school, in the Big Ten. He's going to take his lumps. He's going to have games where he doesn't score any points and turns the ball over too much and all that. I mean, that's being a freshman, and he's got to have that confidence and make sure that it doesn't affect him.
By the way, other fun with numbers, Rob Phinisee, assist rate of 41 early in the season. Great to see. For a guy who's still working his way back, that's an insane assist rate. He's drawn fouls too. So he's using 29.4% of possessions when he's on the court. So, I mean, Rob is getting in there and making things happen. Andy, do you want to hit one more thing before we...
No, I can. I'll do it in my last call. We got to get to an extensive preview of Troy, right?
Yes. So
I'm gonna just exit here. You go ahead and do your thing, buddy.
So we have Assembly Call Radio coming up on Thursday night, obviously, as we always do. The Troy game on Saturday, and then want to give a shout out to our friends at Hoosier Hysterics who have their event on Saturday before the Troy game at noon. Unfortunately, I would have loved to be there.
We all would have.
Yeah, I can't travel this week, so wasn't able to get up for it. It's just kind of one of those things where the scheduling didn't work out. But, if you go, definitely, tweet pictures. Let us know how it is. I know it's going to be just a remarkable event. Those guys have worked so hard to put it on. And it's really, I think it's an amazing service that they're doing for the fan base to kind of bring everybody together, bring all these ex-players back. It's the kind of thing that I love seeing from this program, bringing different eras together, bringing fans together. So I tip my cap to those guys for what they've, and everybody else who's involved in putting that on. I think it's going to be a great event, and I look forward to seeing how it goes and listening to their podcast of that. But that's on Saturday, and then obviously Indiana plays Troy Saturday night. Troy currently 293rd in KenPom. Indiana predicted to win by 23. Andy, please give us the lowdown on mighty Troy.
Well, coached by Scott Cross, who coached UT Arlington that played at IU last year. So
so he'll have some confidence. They played Indiana tough.
Yeah, they played relatively well. Troy's pretty down. This could help IU's free throw defense get back. They're currently shooting 43.3% from the line through 2 games, so that could be helpful. They shoot a lot of threes though, so if you think about one thing to really watch, they shoot almost 43% of their field goal attempts are from 3-point range, and they're hitting just over 40% so far. So,
oh boy,
and they've got a fairly high assist rate, assisting on about 2/3 of their made field goals. So something to, if you kind of, take away things from the first half of the game tonight, hopefully you see some improvement from IU in that regard. They have not been good defensively. They played 2 home games against UAB and Chattanooga and lost both, although both by single digits. So, the 3-point shooting, I think, will be really the big thing to watch there. How well can IU contain, dribble penetration and close out the shooters?
By the way, guys, we're more than an hour into the show, and we forgot something very important. It's Coach's birthday today.
Well, I thought everybody knew that. I thought it would be redundant.
I know, but we kind of forgot. We should have.
You dumbass.
I know. Sorry, Coach. We should have wished you happy birthday off the top. Happy birthday, Coach. And happy birthday to Robbie and Ben Malcolmson, too.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to those guys. Big birthday day for the IU podcasting community. Which is
very true. Very true.
Obviously, the most important is Coach, though. We love you, Coach.
Yes, we do.
I hate it.
Well, yeah. You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Remember to use that promo code Assembly20. That's Assembly20, so that you can get 20% off on the most comfortable and unique IU apparel that you will find anywhere. Go to homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code Assembly20. Hey, maybe get your 9-Windiana shirt for the football team so that when they beat Penn State and they end that stupid streak against Michigan, you can be wearing the shirt when they secure win number 9. Hey, it's the year of the called shot in Indiana football, so I'm just calling it. We're ending that damn streak against Michigan. All right, let's go to last call. What do you guys say?
Let's do it.
Sounds good.
Andy, you're on the Eastern time zone. We'll give you the honors. We'll make Ryan suffer through.
We'll rotate through time zones. Good. I like it.
Yeah.
The other thing, and we didn't get to this stretch, but I think it fits here. We keep talking about habits and different things like that. There was a stretch toward the end of the first half tonight where it really felt like IU could have kind of put their foot on the throat of North Alabama. They're up 13 late in the half. Demezy's late on a closeout. They give up a 3. Al takes a quick 3 on the other end and misses, and then IU proceeds to foul North Alabama on the next 2 possessions and give up 4 points on free throws. And so, you kind of look for those kinds of things in this game. Like, can you put teams away? Can you really extend these leads and not give that hope? And I think there were times during the Portland State game where you just had opportunities to really extend the lead and take the hope away from the other team. And so I think that's been, that's something to watch for. And I think in another handful of games where you would expect IU to win handily, can they really exert their will, take the other team out of the game and not let somebody hang around? Because there'll be, far better teams that they play later in the season that you will want to really be able to put away when you have the chance. And I think they've missed chances at a couple of those early on. But, overall, I like the way they reacted. Coming out after halftime. I think that has been, as I said earlier, a little bit of a theme for this team, that haven't played the best, but you can see what the points of emphasis were at halftime, and they come out, execute those in the second half. And so, for me, another solid performance in a game that lasted nearly 2.5 hours because the referees wanted to call upwards of 50 fouls. And, when I go to a basketball game, that is what I want to see. And so in that way, they've done a great service to all of us.
It's all for you, Andy. It's all for you. Ryan,
First off, I want to say anybody who enjoys listening to my voice Thursday morning at 5 o'clock Pacific, so 8 Eastern, I will be guest hosting the morning show on 97.3 The Fan in San Diego. So go to Twitter and find out where you can listen to that. If you want to listen, please do. I'm sure I'll mention IU in there somewhere. I always do. Secondly, I just want to read you a tweet that came across right now. Here's a wow. This is from Matt Norlander. Here's a wow. Evansville's win at Kentucky on Tuesday night was the first win by a true mid-major in a road environment against the number 1 ranked team since 1993, when Long Beach State beat Kansas at Kansas. So good job, Evansville. We love you.
That's the mighty Long Beach State Beach.
Yeah, is that the worst?
It's got to be one of the dumbest things I've ever heard.
Anyway, yeah, just another nice win for Indiana. The second half was really encouraging. I think we were all discouraged based on our group chat by the first half a little bit. I mean, felt like it was going like one of those early season games where they just kind of go through the motions and don't defend anyone and all that, and you get upset and things are gently hurled around the apartment. But I thought the second half they really locked in and played the way that we expect them to play. The defense wasn't perfect. The offense wasn't perfect, but they got it done. And they got it done with the help of a lot of guys. And that's what this team's going to be this year. It's going to be a lot of guys helping out and a lot of young guys and guys who are going to be good for the future of this program as well. And guys who are going to develop and not only win this year, but develop them into a team that can win next year and the year after that. I mean, you look at the roster. It's a very young team, and it's a very young team, and it's a team of very young guys contributing, and that's the encouraging thing. So if they can get on the right track early, have a great year this year, and build towards even more in the future, that's going to be fantastic, and that's going to be something to be excited about. And I'm already excited about this team. I like the way they play. I like their toughness, and I like the way that they play on the interior, especially. We'll work on the guards as we get healthier. So. I will be excited to see what they do on Saturday, and we'll talk to you then.
Yeah, because Ryan will not be here Thursday night. This is his policy of load management here during the season.
I think we've learned that I will be there Thursday night, regardless of my wishes. So. Oh
no, that's right. You are going to be there Thursday.
I am going to be
Saturday.
there. Nobody else can sub
He
for me. So.
He tried to take it off, but
Kawhi Leonard, I am not.
Load management.
Yeah, we got to use that. We got to find good ways to use that drop. It's a great line from Coach. Yeah, look, really bad first half I thought for Indiana tonight, but it was nice to see the guys recover. I think we were talking with Coach right before we went live, and his quote was, patience within the game. Important for fans to have patience. And I don't think Archie probably showed a lot of patience at halftime, and I'm looking forward to hearing what he had to say after the game and kind of hearing what that was like at halftime, because it sounds like, he probably read them the riot act, and it's a good thing. Last year it felt like it took Archie maybe a little bit too long to tear into this team for lackadaisical play, and we saw how they responded to it toward the end of the season, and maybe that's what this team needed, was a little early season wake-up call to let them know that they weren't playing the kind of defense that they needed to play, and they got it turned around in the second half. It was nice to see, and it led to a nice performance and a nice victory, and hopefully now one more game against these, sub 250 opponents in Troy, and then after that, the competition improves a little bit, and you play Princeton, that's 205, Louisiana Tech, 89th, South Dakota State, 194, so it's not a lot better, but it's at least a little bit better. So let's hope that we can get some important things done against Troy, keep developing those good habits and just continue progressing through this November schedule in preparation for what's going to be a tough December where there's not a whole lot of margin for error. So this Indiana team needs to get those good habits going. They did tonight in the second half, and hopefully that is a sign of things to come. All right, if you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall. And don't forget to go to assemblycall.com or text IU to 66866 to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to longtime listener Bob Thompson, who produced much of the music that you hear on the show, and thank you for listening. We will be back to talk IU hoops again with you on Thursday night and then Saturday after IU Troy. Until then,
take it from me, Yogi Ferrell. Keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim, and go Hoosiers.
Go Hoosiers.
Thank everybody for coming out.
All right, I got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.
Good stuff, gents.
Indeed.
See you on Thursday, Ryan.
Yeah, it'll be great. If I nod off in the middle of the show, don't hold it against me.
I'll see if maybe someone else wants to come on with us.
Call time is 3:30. Very excited.
I was gonna say, you probably get Galen or Cam or.
I mean, if they want to, if they don't, it's if they're excited about it, or if it's like, oh yeah, I'll try, then I'll just do it. It's fine. But yeah, that's a rough one. I don't know why that station does 5 a.m. instead of 6 a.m. for its morning show.
5 a.m. Yeah, that's aggressive.
5 a.m. and it's 4 hours. It's 5 to 9 instead of, like the old station was 6 to 9, and then they extended it an extra hour because.
Now, what's the audience for this? Is this a local San Diego show, or does this have national
San Diego,
syndication?
yeah, it's owned by Entercom, but it's a San Diego. It's the Padres station, so we got lots of Padres guests. Do
you really shoehorn in Indiana talk when you're?
I'll say some Indiana stuff. I'll like people. They'll mention like, oh, big slate of games coming up this weekend. I'll be like, yeah, Indiana's playing Troy. Like, I mean, it was really
like IU Penn State at least.
Yeah,
maybe stick.
That's
with
actually a top 25 matchup now. That's actually you're not really reaching that far to fit it in that way.
When we used to have the Hangover, the show that I did on Saturdays, that we'd be like, oh, because it would be early in the morning, so the East Coast games would be starting. Out here it was early, and they'd always be like, all right, so the big games are, and they start listening off and like Indiana Penn State. Like I would always, and yeah. People were big fans of that. Not my co-host, but other people were.
Jen asked, is it going to be Ryan by himself on Thursday night? Not this week, but sometime we do need to have a Ryan solo show.
Well, that's the funny thing is that like literally I can't host with the way we do it because I don't have a Mac. So I'm sure you can figure out a way, but
we could figure out a way.
And I can't do a Mac. I just can't. I've tried. I can't. I'm not like anti-Mac. I'm just saying for me personally, I can't do it. I don't know.
Well, on that note.
Yeah, sorry guys.
All good. Thanks everybody for being here.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah, we'll talk to you.
Happy birthday, Coach.
Happy birthday to Coach. Pace yourself, Coach.
Load management.
Yeah, load management.
There's no load management in college basketball.
I mean, he's right. There isn't.
Oh man.
Oh, Archie.
Yeah, what could you ask him that he would find more appalling than that question is really?
I don't know. You guys know your audience.
His just the disdain for that whole concept coming through in his voice is just fantastic.
Yeah, it was great.
It was great. All right. See y'all on Thursday.
All right. Later.
Bye, everybody.